and welcome to FPL Mate, your best move for fantasy Premier League content for the 2023-24 season. My name is Dan and it's time for our Gameweek 25 episode of Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid. We're going to have a look at some of the transfer trends, what we should be hopping on, and not as well. Guys, if you enjoy this one, drop a like, subscribe. Let's get started with the rules. So buys are players you probably don't have but should consider bringing in. Sells are players you probably have but should consider removing. Keeps are players you might be thinking of removing but I think you should keep them. And avoids are players that are pretty hyped up right now but I think there are potential traps that should be avoided. That was probably the quickest I've ever done that introduction. Guys, let's see how we got on last game week, Game Week 24. Okay, so Game Week 24, Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid went very well, actually. Really well. A lot of the players scoring points that we predicted would score points, and a lot of the players that we thought maybe wouldn't score points, indeed did not score points. So hopefully, guys, you were able to capitalize on some of the advice given out last game week, because we pretty much smashed it. The only exceptions really being Alisson, who last minute had the illness that ruled him out of that game, and also we had Walker last minute withdrawal from the team. We expected him to start, but in the end he didn't. But I do have to say, if you guys followed along with the team news that we got, the late team news we got for the deadline stream, hopefully you were able to take advantage of that Walker news and was able to bench him in time. And of course, guys, we did have Højlund going down as an avoid. He did actually score against Aston Villa, but I said in last video that I think Højlund is a good pick at the moment, but there's just better options right now that I think will match him and outscore him. And I kind of picked out the names. I picked out Tony and Darwin, who both matched Højlund's scores. Of course, both have double game weeks this week as well, so I think those will be advantageous players to have over Højlund in Game Week 25. And I picked out, of course, Erling Haaland. If you're going for Højlund over Haaland, then, maybe you were finding yourself a little bit disappointed last game week after all. So, yeah, in general, very happy with the Game Week 24 scores, and we seem to be on a bit of a streak at the moment with doing well for these Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid videos. So, yeah, long may it continue. So starting off with some buys, I'm going to go Alisson as our goalkeeper buy. I think the real advantage of going for Alisson as your goalkeeper to buy right now is the fact that he's a lot easier to bench in Game Week 26, where Liverpool do have that blank game week. And I don't mind the look of going for a Liverpool defender. I think there is definitely some scope for some save points and some clean sheets here potentially. I don't think it's guaranteed necessarily, but I think Liverpool have always got a chance of a clean sheet. Alisson is obviously a top goalkeeper. He's nailed on, so he's going to be playing both fixtures in this game week. And yeah, like I say, if you have two goalkeepers, if you've got a Dubravka or an Areola or something like that as your other goalkeeper, it's actually very easy to bench a blanking Alisson in Game Week 26. So it could be a really nice way of getting an extra double game week player without actually making any sacrifices in Game Week 26, which I think is something a lot of people are wrestling with, struggling with at the moment. And for our defender buy, I'm going to put Gabriel down here. I definitely think the Arsenal defence is on fire at the moment. 2 clean sheets in the last 5, but actually 3 expected clean sheets, which is quite significant. Obviously, Gabriel is a super goal threat as well. The 2 goals were no coincidence. He's tracking at 1.76 XG over the past 5 game weeks as well. So it's not like he's got lucky. He is just a player who takes a lot of shots from those set pieces, and Arsenal dominate those set pieces, don't they? So yeah, Arsenal defence, particularly against Burnley and Sheffield United in a couple of weeks' time, these are going to be some really nice points. And I have to say, it is difficult to recommend defender transfers at the moment in general. I'm not sure I fully trust Liverpool defenders for rotation. You could maybe go Van Dijk there. I think he would be the one Liverpool defender I would consider. Man City, rotation nightmare. Brentford, with a double game week, have horrible fixtures, but maybe Reguilon is worth a shout. And Luton are still conceding goals. Outside of that, who are we going for defenders right now? I think Arsenal are probably your safest bet up until Game Week 29, where it looks like Arsenal are going to blank. So for now, Arsenal defenders, Gabriel, you can maybe add Saliba there if you're desperate for a new defender, but I would be focusing my attention to maybe positions further up the pitch. So let's talk about that. So Phil Foden is going to be my midfield buy. I flirted with the idea of putting some Liverpool midfielders in here, maybe a Jota or a Luis Diaz, but we have received the news today, guys, that Salah has returned to full training. That is not something we were necessarily expecting to happen quite yet, but it is happening, guys. So yeah, don't panic too much, but Salah's back in training, and that might eat into the minutes of some of those Liverpool attackers. I think it certainly maybe reduces the appeal of a Diogo Jota, of a Luis Luis Diaz, and therefore, with the blank in 26 as well, I think it's easy to say that Foden is in fact the Manchester City double game week midfielder to buy, I guess. Out of all of the double game week midfielders, you put Foden and De Bruyne there as probably the top two transfer targets. Speaking on Salah very quickly, still not convinced that he is going to be a buy for this week. Very expensive, might require restructuring your team, and I don't think he'll get more than 90 minutes over the double game week anyway, which still could be decent for Salah, but not enough to justify, an 180 minutes from Foden. Not that that's going to happen, but I think we can get a lot closer to that than a Salah might do. I think Foden probably plays double the amount that Salah will, and I think that is going to be enough of a swing that makes Foden the better pick over this double game week. 2 home fixtures, which is very, very nice. 2 teams that are conceding goals at the moment, which is also very nice. And we've got a situation here where Foden is, he's basically 2 players in one. Sometimes it doesn't look like he's so good, but when Foden gets that freedom to play, move into the middle a little bit more, when he's got some wider players, whether it's kind of Walker playing on the outside right, or maybe Bernardo Silva out on the right, Foden has a little bit more space to play around with, then he definitely can be a really effective player there, and he's shown that when he's in the right positions, he is super, super dangerous, and I think that's going to continue as long as he can play in those positions. And certainly after that Everton game, you look at that and you think, if Foden was playing slightly more centrally, maybe Man City could have got off to a slightly better start in that game. So I think maybe Pep Guardiola might think, we've got to play Foden in his best position and give him that freedom to do what he does best. And, if he does, it's going to be a huge double game week. Of course, no blank in 26 either. In terms of forwards, Darwin Núñez looks like the standout guy for me. I think even with Salah coming in, Darwin is probably the most nailed on forward for Liverpool outside of Salah when available. So I think Darwin's minutes should still be very good. We obviously saw him miss out a little bit recently due to a minor injury, but seems to be back to full fitness now. Obviously a player who is getting an insane amount of chances to score. We know this already. Darwin, 4.9 XG over the past 5 game weeks. Considering he was on the bench for one of those games, that's not bad at all. 28 shots during this time and 9 big chances. And his creativity is decent as well. 9 key passes, 1.75 expected assists. He is an absolute numbers machine. The problem is with him, as always, is the finishing. But to a degree, it doesn't matter. If you can keep generating this amount of chances, you are going to score some of them, even if you don't score all of them. And over a double game week, that's double the amount of this insane amount of shots he's going to be taking. We're going to probably see him take several really dangerous area shots. He's probably going to get at least 3 or 4 big chances over the double game week. That is definitely enough for him to get a goal or 2, add the creativity, and we're looking at potential 2-3 returns from Darwin quite comfortably. And I think he is going to really, really reward those people who are willing to go for him for this double game week. Just be aware of that blank game week. But I think Darwin at this present moment is the #1 target to go for from Liverpool for this double game week. I can't really see any other players that I would prefer to have right now. So might be worth a punt as long as you can cover him or sell him, maybe for Watkins or Solanke next game week. Leno, I think, is probably going to be a sell. It's not been going too well defensively for Fulham. They always seem to be conceding the odd goal. They have actually kept more clean sheets than expected with 1. They're 9.5 expected goals conceded. That's quite a lot. They're still conceding a lot of chances. Leno's still pretty good for saves, but at the same time, you kind of look at these fixtures. Aston Villa, who score a lot of goals. Man United finding form at the moment, and you wonder where the clean sheets are going to come from. Even game week 29, it's going to be a pretty tough fixture there as well for Fulham. So I think in general, Leno is just a player that maybe the experiment is over by now, and we maybe need to move him on. Leno to Alisson looks pretty good, I think. Pedro Porro, also probably a sell right now, partially because he has that blank game week in game week 26. We're probably looking to sell blank game week players either this week or next week. You're going to have to kind of try and figure out how you're going to get 11 men on the field in game week 11. And Pedro Porro might be a good man to sacrifice. And part of that is because he is just not effective at all at the moment. He really isn't. In fact, we previously liked Porro because his creativity was so good. But in the last 3 games for Spurs, and this coincides with Maddison coming back to the Spurs team, Pedro Porro has not created a single chance. Not made 1 key pass in his last 3 game weeks. This is not good. It really isn't good. This is a 5.8 million defender who we already know plays for a pretty shocking defence. If we don't have attacking returns to come alongside the lack of clean sheets, then where is the value? It's simply not there. So if I was to sell a defender this week, it would be pretty comfortably Pedro Porro. Midfield sells are tough this week. I know a lot of people will be maybe looking to sell the likes of Bowen, but if you do still have Bowen and you're looking to maybe solidify a team for Game Week 29, Bowen has a fixture in Game Week 29. Gordon most likely does not. And even this next game week, I know we look at Bournemouth and we think that's a pretty easy fixture, right? Bournemouth actually tracking with some really nice defensive numbers at the moment. They're currently third. You guys who watched the strategy stream we did last night will know that Bournemouth's defensive numbers are third best in the Premier League at the moment. They're tracking similar to Man City at the moment. So it is not an easy fixture. And Gordon's numbers have dropped off fairly significantly as well. This is not particularly good numbers for a player who started 5 in 5, 0.83 XG, 0.53 XA. Yes, he's outperformed that, he's overperformed that, but I think his effectiveness has been slightly diminished of late. So maybe Gordon is an easier player to sell than most. And we've got Julian Alvarez as our sell as well. Now, you might have noticed on screen, guys, that I've put only the Game Week 23 and 24 stats because I'm pretty much bored of saying, yeah, Alvarez's rotation risk. I don't even know if I fully believe Alvarez's rotation risk, but what I want to focus on in today's video is the fact that Alvarez, his numbers since he stopped playing as a striker have, you know, halved, quartered. It is nowhere near. He is a shadow of what he was as an FPL asset just a few game weeks ago when Haaland was unavailable. His numbers have dropped off so significantly. So this is the last 2 games since Haaland has been starting, since Alvarez has been pushed back into the slightly more deeper midfield areas. These are Alvarez's numbers. And what I usually use as a rough guide is I want to see 0.5 expected goal involvements per game on average. Now, 2 games is a pretty small sample size, but you can see that Alvarez really only around 0.6 attacking returns every 2 games, or 0.3. 0.31 technically, 0.31 expected attacking involvements per game. That means you're expecting him to get a goal return every 3 games. That's not great. Now, obviously, this is not a kind of a catch-all criteria. No, we need to look at how clinical the player is, how you know, how good the finishers are that the player is creating for. These are all definite things we need to consider as well. But the last 2 game weeks have not been particularly good for Alvarez. And I think when we look at all of the other forwards available at the moment, Haaland, Tony, you know, Watkins, Darwin Nunez, we already spoke about him today. Where does Alvarez fit in? Højlund as well. He plays against Luton this week. Where does Alvarez fit in among all them? And you would have to say he is fairly low on the pile, even if he plays 180 minutes over the double game week. There's still a lot of forwards that can outscore him, and I just don't think he is an optimal pick anymore. So, yeah, would be looking to sell him, whether you think he's going to start or not. We can talk about minutes as much as we like. We'll probably never get to a true answer, but we can certainly say Alvarez is just not the player he was a couple of weeks ago, and I think he is a player to potentially think about selling if you can find a nice upgrade for him. Ederson is a keep. I'm not sure why people are selling him, but he's got roughly around the same sells as he has buys this game week, which I thought was pretty interesting. Obviously, a nice clean sheet or 2 over the past 5 game weeks. So Man City actually finally keeping a couple of clean sheets. Don't think that's necessarily going to happen against Chelsea and Brentford, but they're 2 home games. You never know what's going to happen in these kind of fixtures, so it could be interesting for sure. But yeah, Ederson, yeah, definitely just a goalkeeper you want to keep at the moment. I don't think he is necessarily the best Man City player you can own right now, but I don't think it's worth switching him out for another one. I would stick with Ederson if you have him. You know, even if as long as you've got Haaland and one of Foden and De Bruyne, I think you're fine to continue to roll with Ederson rather than making any kind of double transfer to pick another Man City player. Stick with Ederson. And Trent Alexander-Arnold, I'm going to put down as a tentative keep for today. This could change. By the time we get to deadline, this could very much change. So, guys, be aware that we may change our mind on this before deadline. But I think if you have Trent, you keep him. Do I think he'll start 2 games in the double game week? No, I don't. Will I buy Trent? No, I wouldn't. But I would probably keep him. So maybe he's a don't buy, don't sell kind of player right now. Of course, he hasn't been spotted in training so far this week, which is a little bit concerning. But we've got a long week to go, and we've got Klopp's press conferences and things like that. And you imagine that Trent, you know, similar to Salah, if you have him already, you know, I'm sure most of you sold Salah by now, but if you already have him, then you kind of just take the chance on getting some minutes and, you know, knowing that your player is so good that they can produce something in those few minutes. Not necessarily a player to buy, but a player to hold on to unless we get some more definitive information that Trent is going to be out. But one more note, Connor Bradley is back in training actually as well. So, maybe Trent's minutes are looking worse than they were previously. Few people worried about De Bruyne being benched against Everton. Me personally, not worried at all. I see it as a good sign. It shows that De Bruyne has now had his rest and now can go on and play some more games, maybe a little bit more consistently for Man City, and he's going to be back to being that nailed-on guy. He wasn't going to be suddenly a nailed-on guy in this Man City team overnight. It was always going to take a little bit of time, maybe one rest or two, before he can get back to playing every single game. But I think we are getting closer to that. And this double game week is very, very appetizing for Man City. We already spoke about how that, these are two teams that have been conceding goals recently. They're not in the best shape at the moment. They've been conceding chances, conceding goals. And I think, this Man City team with De Bruyne and Haaland combined is just absolutely crazy. And this is going to be back to the big Man City. They always have such a good second half to the season, and that starts with these two players. So De Bruyne on set pieces, which is very, very useful, creating everywhere on the pitch, taking shots from range. He is a player who can make a real difference. And if you have him in your team, I would feel very, very fortunate right now, because a lot of people have been struggling to get De Bruyne into their team. If you have him, you definitely keep him. And Solanke is probably going to be the most controversial keep of this video, and maybe the most controversial keep in a few weeks, to be fair. But I do think if you have Solanke, you maybe keep him. I don't think I would move him to Darwin, because especially if you know that you're going to have to transfer Darwin back out for a Solanke or a Watkins maybe. But Solanke in particular, people look at this Newcastle fixture and say, that's a tough fixture. On the FPL website, on the FPL app, this is a red fixture, Newcastle away. But those of us who watch football, and I know you guys watch football, you may have noticed that Newcastle are pretty much the worst defence in the Premier League. So Solanke, who's actually been putting up some decent numbers, fairly decent numbers recently, on penalties as well, maybe he is going to be a player who can damage a Newcastle team that seem to be getting damaged every week by every opponent. You really would bag Bournemouth to score a couple of goals against Newcastle, and if that's happening, it's going to be Solanke involved. So I'm not sure it's worth a switch. I know people will be switching Solanke to Darwin, maybe Solanke to Haaland. I could understand that a bit more, but a Solanke to Darwin, a Solanke to Tony, I don't think I would do it. And remember, guys, after that Man City game in 26, we've got Burnley, amazing fixture, and one of the best double game weeks I've ever seen for a forward in Sheffield United and Luton Town, both at home. Unreal. Guys, if you have Solanke, I would be really tempted to keep him now. Finally, some avoids. Kelleher, a few people buying him, looking to get that 3.7 million goalkeeper who played last game for Liverpool. But, of course, like I mentioned, it was because Alisson was ill. Alisson is back now. He's with Liverpool. He's training. Kelleher, he came in for that one game, but do not expect him to play any minutes in the double game week. It's going to be all about Alisson. So your time and transfers may be wasted when it comes to Kelleher. So I would leave that one indeed. And Fabian Schär, I already spoke about Newcastle being a terrible defence. So why would you buy a defender from them? I think that makes sense. Yes, he scored a couple of goals recently. Of course, he has been overperforming a little bit there, and I do think he is a genuine goal threat. But we look at these next two fixtures, and I think Bournemouth, like I say, not too bad defensively at all. Arsenal away, the best defence in the Premier League. So is he going to have those goal-scoring opportunities? Again, we look at defenders. If they can't give us clean sheets, and Fabian Schär is another player who cannot give us clean sheets at the moment, we need to get attacking returns from them. And over the next two game weeks, particularly Arsenal, who are strong from those set-piece positions, I don't think it's really going to happen. And, of course, Newcastle not expected to play in 29 either. Fabian Schär, I would just leave that one. Would not go near Newcastle defenders at the moment. That potentially even includes Trippier. I would even debate selling Trippier if you have him right now. I don't think he's a must-sell or anything like that. And if you have Schär already, don't think he's a must-sell. But they wouldn't be top of my list of players to keep either. We have to talk about Cole Palmer today, guys, because he has been on fire. You can see, guys, in front of you, 4 goals and 3 assists in his last 5 games. That's absolutely crazy stuff for a 5.9 million midfielder. And his underlying numbers are pretty decent as well. He has been overperforming, but the numbers are still very, very strong. Player on penalties as well, which is always very useful. I know a lot of people will be looking to sell Palmer. I'll touch on that in a minute. But first of all, I would just say, if you don't have him already, you've missed your chance. You have missed the boat a little bit here. And the next opportunity to buy Palmer is probably going to be in Gameweek 27, because we've got a away game against Man City next. After that, we've got a blank. This is not a good time to buy Palmer, especially if you think you're going to be in trouble in Game Week 26, and a lot of people will. They really will be. Seriously, it feels like the most underrated, underspoken about blank game week of the season, because I think a lot of people are going to be in big trouble. And buying Chelsea players, buying Spurs players, even buying Liverpool players and Luton players, it's just going to put you into more trouble. So I wouldn't be looking to buy a player who doesn't double now, plays against Man City now, and doesn't even have a game in 26. Doesn't make too much sense. Over the next 2 game weeks, Palmer is not going to score more than whoever you've got right now, if we're totally honest. On the other hand, would I sell Palmer? I know a lot of you guys are looking to sell Palmer. For me personally, no. I do say this often. I think Chelsea can score goals against some of the bigger teams. If anyone's going to be involved in the goals, it's going to be Cole Palmer. Last time Man City plays against Chelsea in the Premier League, 4-4. That was the score. So if that happens again, if even something close happens again, if Chelsea can do any damage against Man City, then Cole Palmer's going to be involved. So is it a case of try and bench him if you can, maybe think about playing him this game week, and holding him through game week 26 if you can? Because if you have Palmer right now, I think the priority is to try and maybe bench him this week, but it's kind of optional. Game week 26, you're going to have to bench him. So maybe we look at actually selling Liverpool players. We look at selling maybe potentially Luton players, Spurs players. Do we think about selling those before Cole Palmer? I think we potentially do, because I look after game week 26 and I see 2 really underrated fixtures for him where I think he can do some more damage, as he's been doing damage all season. So if you are selling Palmer, do so at your own risk. You're probably going to be fine for the next 2 game weeks, but after that, he is going to be a player you probably want back in your team, even if he does blank in game week 29. He's a seriously dangerous player to not own. And to me personally, I'm going to be keeping him. I'm just going to be benching him over the next 2 game weeks. I would rather sell other players who blank in 26. And yeah, I'm looking forward to him to becoming a differential, and I think he will. And Archer, quick one in here, because I did struggle to pick out a forward avoid. I think there's so many good forwards at the moment, and I know you guys seem to be picking up these players anyway. Could have put Alvarez in here, I guess, but didn't want to double up. Not really right, is it? But yeah, Archer, a 4.3 million forward, would not be looking to do that at the moment. I think we need to be putting a little bit more money in the forward position rather than taking it away and downgrading to Archer. The 3 forward formation is in fashion, and it will continue to be in fashion for the next 4 or 5 game weeks for sure. So yeah, Archer is not really a player I'd look at going for right now. Despite his goal last game week, he also missed a really big chance in that game. Don't think he's nailed on. He's only started 1 game in the last 5. So I think maybe when Brereton Diaz comes back, Archer might find himself back on the bench, unfortunately. So yeah, money in forward position. Archer is just not the play. Once again, guys, no early transfers because we have potential Salah information coming between now and the end of the game. We've got Trent information. We're going to see how Man City line up in the Champions League, and there's always a chance of injuries and stuff in international, European, I guess, competitions as well, which could happen. So yeah, keep your ears firmly against the walls. See what happens over the next few days, because we're going to get some key information in, and hopefully some Liverpool team news as well. But big game week, guys. Don't rush into anything. Do things that make you happy, of course, and the double game week players are always going to be very, very popular, but just be aware of game week 26 and your impact of the transfers you make now, what impact they might have in game week 26. Thanks so much for watching this video today, guys. If you did enjoy, make sure you drop a like, do subscribe if you're new around here. Of course, we have uploaded 3 bits of content prior to today for Game Week 25. Crazy, I know. One of them was a stream, to be fair, but I do recommend you go check that out. So yeah, link here for another Game Week 25 video. Go check it out if you would like to. But aside from that, thank you so much for watching once again, and I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.